You're listening to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. Here you'll gain tools to lead proactively, conquer overwhelm, and revitalize your law enforcement teams and your agency.
We're your hosts, Michael and Cathy McIntosh. Mike is a retired sheriff and current division chief in the Denver metro area with nearly 40 years of law enforcement experience.
Cathy is a business and branding expert and a longtime law enforcement wife with a unique perspective on the human side of law enforcement.
Together, we share a powerful blend of practical experience and insightful roadmaps to help you elevate your call to service.
Well, welcome back to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. You know, the calendar has changed, the year has changed, and one of the things that folks typically do, or at least there's a lot of talk about it, is a New Year's resolution. And there's a lot of folks that go into that, and I really think that the mindset is right to, you've got this new year, let's create new habits, things that we would really like to do in the new year. But we also know that we make New Year's resolutions, and usually by about this time or February, we're no longer doing those. And those could be very, very discouraging. But you recently started really looking at that differently. And I want you to explain what that looks like.
Well, I don't like to do a New Year's resolution at all. And one reason is because this season is so busy. So, everybody knows what November, December look like. You're just cramming your calendar full of stuff. And then January happens, and all the meetings and events and trainings and all the things that you couldn't do in November and December are stacked into your January calendar. And January for me is a terrible time to try to start anything new. So I like to reset my goals in the fall or in the spring, and oftentimes it's both. That's when I revisit things.
Sure.
But this January, I decided to be very intentional about starting a new habit that's been very good for my business, and it's a financial habit. I have always been good about knowing where my business money goes and just staying on top of it all, but I don't record it until the end of the year, and then it's just like the most agony I could put myself through. And so you recently went through a change, and you're starting to work on Fridays. And the first Friday that you went back to work, I was just doing my morning stuff, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to do my financials just for this week. I'm going to call it Financial Friday, and I'm going to do this every week on Fridays. And I'm 3 for 3 now. And I'll just tell you that simple change of being intentional and doing something on purpose, and, setting a reminder in my phone that I want to spend 15 minutes doing this once a week, and it's going to make my next year so much better than this year.
Right.
And so that intentionality and that habit building has just really gone a long way for me. That's just my little personal story of a new habit that I'm working to build. And one thing that I did was I put it all over social media. I have talked about it, I think, in every new group that I meet with regularly. And mostly I just want to shout it from the rooftops because I want the accountability.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be an idea that I don't ever follow up on. I want it to be something that sticks. And the more people I tell, nobody's going to ask me about it. Let's be honest. Nobody's going to say, hey, Cathy, how's your Financial Friday going?
Yeah.
But I know that I've told them, and I can look them in the eye and go, I've done it. I'm 3 for 3 so far. So it's a good thing. And intentionality is one of the things that we're going to talk about today on the podcast. We're talking about personal leadership and how if we lead ourselves well, it can impact our teams and actually our entire organizations. And we know that in every organization, the culture itself starts at the top. Most of your organization is going to mimic the way that the top leader behaves and does things and the mindset. But strong leadership isn't formed in the public moments. It's formed and shaped in the quiet minutes. What happens when you're not in front of the room? What happens when the cameras are off and social media is not blasting you? Or it's the discipline, the accountability that start to define who you are as a leader, and what happens when the daily grind starts to happen and starts to test our patience. What happens on week 4 when maybe I miss Financial Friday?
Right.
That's going to shape who I am with my accountability and my discipline. So in today's episode, we just want to talk about what it means to lead yourself first and the impact that it can have to fuel an organization or a team through credibility, how creating a culture of being consistent and steadfast and service-focused all the time happens not like you've flipped a switch and you just changed the culture, but it happens one decision at a time.
Yeah. I'm really excited about being able to walk through this. And I love the story that you just told, mainly because you started it and it's not complicated.
Right.
It's a goal, it's a decision, it's a habit that you wanted to start getting into. And guess what? If you miss a Friday, well, you might be able to pick it up the next day, or you just double it up on the next Friday. And it doesn't have to be something that is a habit breaker.
Sure.
And when it comes to our personal leadership, I think to me, that's the key in it all.
Why do you think, just in your wealth of experience as a leader, why do you think that personal leadership has such a valuable impact on our teams and our culture?
I look at the law enforcement culture, and leadership in law enforcement is under public scrutiny.
For sure.
Every decision that a leader in law enforcement makes, it truly does reflect on the entire profession.
Not just on the organization, but the profession as a whole.
Yeah, we think of about both good decisions and bad decisions that leaders in law enforcement have made just in the recent couple of years, and the impact that has nationwide and sometimes worldwide.
Yeah, there's some stuff going on in the news right now that's really emphasizing that.
Absolutely. And then you look at the internal culture, and we understand and we know that internal culture drives external reputation. How your teams treat each other really is going to reflect itself back in how those teams now treat the community that they're serving. And you and I, and this podcast, Elevate Your Call to Service podcast, it's really about service-driven leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the corrective lens. Personal leadership is that focus on authority through humility, through transparency. But just like you demonstrated in that story, it's that intentional modeling that becomes so important to our personal leadership.
One of the things that we've often said is straight from John Maxwell, and that's leadership is influence.
Right.
And influence comes from the way that you model yourself, the way you handle conflict, the way that you make your daily decisions, the way that you handle frustrations. All of that sends a message to your team, and they start to emulate and mimic that. But you are influencing and molding the people that watch you, not because of the authority that your rank gives you, but because of the way that you handle your personal leadership and the way that you show up during good times and bad alike. So if we could break down what personal leadership really looks like, how would you describe that?
I think it begins with that internal discipline that guides our, and I think one of the key words is consistent behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what folks are looking at, that consistency in the way that there is a response, the way that we lead, the way that we interact, the way that we run a briefing. They're looking at the consistency that's there, and that's where it all starts. When we talk about that habit that you want to form, basically the habit is, in a nutshell, it's consistency.
Yes.
And it's not just what you expect from others, but it's what you require of yourself. That's the personal leadership side of it. It's what are you requiring of yourself?
That is so good.
That emotional control, that communication discipline, that ethical clarity.
For sure. It's just knowing how to show up in different situations. It's knowing what your team needs at any given moment. It's knowing how to take care of yourself well. It's knowing how to leave work and leave work
Yeah.
and leave it behind and go home
Right.
and become a civilian until your next shift starts. It's just the little decisions that you make over and over again in a day that form your personal leadership.
So when you think about that commander who refuses to cut corners under pressure, or the chief who shows up to a difficult scene, not to command the space, but to support their people, that's the true personal leadership in practice. And I'll give you an example, a recent example. We had a critical incident a couple of weeks ago, and there were executive command staff that responded to that critical incident. And that's not necessarily that extraordinary, but being able to be a part of that executive command staff and be there for one purpose, and that purpose was to support our people, to really kind of find out what it is that they need, how are they doing, what do we need to do to make sure that we're taking care of our people well. The beautiful part about all of that is those that were on the scene that responded to that from the sergeant level, from the commander level, they were doing a phenomenal job. They didn't need us there to tell them what they needed to do and what not to do. What we got to do, which I think is just absolutely incredible, is we got to be there to support our people. And when you can start leading like that, then your people really trust that you're going to be there for them when they need you the most, to support them. You're there for the right reasons.
It's such an attitude shift too. I don't have to go out in the middle of the night. I get to go out in the middle of the night to support our people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow, what a great,
so important
service-driven attitude for sure. Explain to me, and I think I know, but I always love to hear what you have to say. But there's a huge difference between rank, the authority that comes with rank, and the ability that you have to influence people, even as a lay leader, even as someone who is just rising up from the deputy level and leading people on your shift even before you become a sergeant.
Right. In law enforcement, it's a very paramilitary. We know what each rank structure is, and we know the authority that comes with that position or with that rank. That authority is granted. It's either granted by the executive officer that decides on who's going to be put in what position. Most of it is also granted in policies and procedures. And that's positional authority. Personal influence, that's what's earned. That's what the folks that you are leading, that's really what it is that they're seeing. And the influence that you have, or the authority that you have, if it's personal authority, is much more powerful than positional authority. Because when I go back and I look at those who had personal influence or personal authority over me, it didn't matter what their rank was. We kind of say that's somebody that we would follow through a brick wall, or we go into a gunfight with. That's the person that we want to follow into a situation like that because of their personal influence or their personal authority. That title, it it gives you that compliance, and it needs to be there, right? In any organization. But that personal leadership, that's what earns the commitment from your troops.
I'm just thinking too, like you can't write a policy and demand morality or integrity from your people.
Right.
You can't, I'm going to use the word legislate. You cannot legislate something like that. You can't just use your authority and demand it. It's just not going to be effective. But you can use your influence and inspire that kind of behavior and that kind of mindset from people.
Yeah, you model that until it becomes the norm, the culture, or is contagious. That's what we're looking for.
There's seasons and times and cycles in our lives where sometimes we've really got that personal leadership thing nailed down. We're firing on all cylinders. We've got our habits in order. We're doing what we think we need to do. And then something blows up and like the holidays happen. It doesn't even have to be something major or traumatic. And we start to drift from our personal leadership and the way that we carry ourselves and the way that we behave and the way that we keep our boundaries in place to keep our guardrails up and keep us on the right road.
Right.
What happens when leaders, especially in the command staff level, start to drift from that personal leadership?
Yeah, if there's no accountability, just like going back to that simple little story, there's a lot of people that know that you're doing that, and there's some accountability there. And if you have that accountability, somebody's going to say, "Hey, how'd Financial Friday go?" When you don't
I'll buy somebody a coffee if they ask me how Financial Friday's going.
When you don't have that, when you don't have somebody or folks that come around you that help you hold yourself accountable, you can start to drift. And when you start to drift, then it starts that erosion of trust. First internally, and then you can start to see that erosion of trust externally.
And it's not just because you make a mistake. It's not because I miss a Friday.
No.
It's because it starts to snowball and it gets a little bit bigger and bigger as we go along.
You're consistently missing a Friday. You're starting to make excuses as to why you're missing that Friday, or whatever the habit is that we're trying to reinforce. And it starts to send mixed messages, especially if you're not willing to accept that you're drifting. It can, in our setting, in a law enforcement setting, it can start to really lower morale. And lower morale, there's that snowball effect now. It leads to increased turnover. Increased turnover starts to erode organizationally. You start to lose that connection that you had with the community. Your community can start to lose faith when that organizational tone becomes hypocritical.
So there's a lot that's riding on it.
There really is. And it's really easy to see how it can snowball and get to that point. And we've seen it happen. And there's times that if you catch that quickly, it doesn't even come close to getting there, right? But if you continue to let that go, then the effects can be very devastating, not just to the organization, but to the community as a whole.
And just to recap, we talk a lot about service-driven leadership, but let's just toss it out there. What is a service-driven leader? What does that look like, especially at the command staff level?
I'm always looking for people that they want to prioritize their folks, their troops. They're prioritizing people over image. It's in I had an opportunity to meet with a group of sergeants just last week, and we were having that conversation that when you step into a role like that, it's no longer about you. It's about those 14 people that you now are in charge of on a team. So hopefully you've already worked the things out internally within yourself, so that now those others see what you're modeling. And that's why the selection of our supervisors is so critical, because those troops are going to emulate what it is that their supervisor is doing.
Mm-hmm. What kind of daily practices do you see that could help somebody start to build their strength and their own personal leadership?
Yeah, first, you need to identify what that is. And sometimes there's things that you want to be able to do throughout a day, or accomplish in a week, or accomplish in a month or a year, whatever that case may be. But you really need to begin each day with the reflection of, what's the tone that I'm going to set today? How am I going to carry myself when I get to work? What is the theme going to be? What is the tone going to be today? And then each day we have to have that accountability moment, which is going to help from us slipping into that area where it's starting to erode, or we're not necessarily doing what it is that we say that we do. But if each day you've got an accountability moment where we're reflective to say, what did I do today?
How did it look?
Mm-hmm. How successful was I at that?
Mm-hmm.
Were there things that didn't go so well? Were there things that went well? Because those are important too. The other piece, and it's such an important piece, in we talked about it earlier, but it's finding people around you that you can solicit true feedback from.
I think we talk about that on every single episode, and that's how valuable it is.
It is. Yeah.
Don't try to do this by yourself.
It is so important to give people permission to lean into that. When you ask somebody to be your accountability partner, or will you question me on this, or will you make sure that if I'm going in a direction that I shouldn't be going, that you're saying something about
You're going to tap me on the shoulder, and we can have a conversation about it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to trust you enough to know that you're doing it to help me, not to tear me down.
That's really going to help you hold yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just want to emphasize one more time that when we talk about leading yourself well, it's not about striving for perfection. And there is grace, and there are mistakes that are going to be made. And, nobody's looking for you to be the perfect leader and, be infallible. It's just striving to be the best that you can be in the situation that you're in right now today. And keeping in mind that everything's got a balance. Your home life has to have a place. Your career has to have a place. You have to be a real person at work and outside of work, and protect all of those assets of yourself.
Right.
What do you think that our listeners can start doing this week? We're already to the point of our challenge. So what would you challenge them to do this week to start to be more intentional about personal leadership?
First, be reflective and start to think about one thing that you would like to start holding yourself accountable to. And then it's just ensuring that you follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's ensuring that you follow through even when no one's looking, when no one notices that you're doing that. Because you really want to make sure that you can model the culture that you want others to see, model the culture that you want your team to be. That's where it starts. It starts with that personal leadership. And then once you're modeling that, others will want to model that well with you.
And something small like that doesn't have to be let's say it doesn't have to be, I want to lose 50 pounds. It can be, I want to stop eating carbs at lunch. I'm going to choose salad at lunch.
Yep.
Or, some kind of carb-free, whatever. It doesn't have to be the big goal. It can be the small step that moves you toward that goal that you will eventually reach. It might be that you're going to learn the names of all the people on your shift.
Right.
If there's been some turnover or some reassignments.
I would even say that it's so much more important for that to be small. Don't have the big grandiose goal. We have that as a vision, right? And when we go back to vision and mission and then you have goals that you set. We want to set goals that are achievable.
Sure.
We want to set goals that we're going to not have to make huge adjustments to, because we know that if you have to make huge adjustments to what you're currently doing, it's probably not going to get done. So start with the small things. Start with that small goal. I always say start with those small wins, because those small wins, they start to multiply and they start to snowball, and you start to see and truly there's that self-reward in the fact that you can do that and you're accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. One small step at a time.
One small step at a time. And it will get you to where it is, to that big V, right? The big vision that you have. Mm-hmm. You can't jump right into that. Like you said, I want to lose 50 pounds by the end of the month. That's unrealistic, not to mention the fact it's probably not healthy. Mm-hmm. But, what is a small goal? What are things that you can do so that if you want to lose 50 pounds, what's that? That's the big V. What are the small things that you can do to accomplish that goal?
Mm-hmm. Just one new habit at a time.
Right.
Good. Yeah, our aim today is to inspire our listeners to just take a fresh look at how they lead themselves and to start becoming more aware of some of the improvements that they can make, and also becoming very intentional about taking the steps to see some improvements.
Right.
Again, not about performance. It's not about perfection.
Right.
It's about getting better, getting stronger, leading better. And you like to say, it's never too late to lead better.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
I just want to say that if today's episode challenged you, we would love for you to take this to your command team, start to talk through what kind of personal leadership changes you can make as a team and what it looks like within your agency this week. And for us, service-driven leadership is not a slogan. It's not a tagline. It's something that we really live and breathe. It translates to home. It translates to family. It translates to ministry and all the things that we're involved in. And it requires a daily investment that helps you earn trust slowly over time. But that trust is going to last, and it's going to be steadfast, and it's going to hold on. We just want to thank our listeners for joining in today.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about this in a similar aspect again next week. So until then, we just hope that you will lead yourself well and serve with great purpose. Ready to build a stronger team, improve your reputation, strengthen officer safety, and recruit top talent? Visit us at leleaders.com and schedule a call with us today. We'd love to discuss how our coaching programs, workshops, and keynote addresses can help you build proactive leaders in a reactive profession.
In the meantime, if you like what you've heard today, we'd love your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.